right, now, a lot of people will say, okay, I can use the word slope. I can call it slope. All right, but I can also call it a rate of change. Okay, so if those words were not introduced to you in middle school, you kind of want to start associating a rate of change with a slope. All right, when we start dealing with story problems and we have to write a linear equation or a linear expression that represents that story problem, all right, we're going to want to find that rate of change. How is things changing in the story problem? Mathematical notation. Little triangle and then a y over a little triangle and then an x. All right, this is a Greek letter and it is read delta y over delta x. Okay, so introducing you to some higher level mathematical notation here. All right, delta y over delta x. That's how you read it. Okay, when you take a physics class, you're going to see that delta a lot. Okay, now what does that mean? Delta y means it is the change in the y's. Okay, change in your y values, your y coordinates. Okay, that's what delta stands for. Okay, so delta x then on the bottom is the change in the x's. Okay, the change in the x coordinates. So how much do they change? All right, and when we introduce the formula for it, which I'm hoping you already saw it in middle school, all right, we subtract the y's on the top, and then we subtract the x's on the bottom. Well, why are we subtracting them? Because that's giving us the change in those two values. When we subtract them, we find out how much they have changed. All right, let's go ahead and, since I talked about that, let's go ahead and write the slope formula down. All right, this is something that you are going to want to memorize, so let's write the word memorize next to it there. Okay, so what this formula is based on, it's based on the fact that you know 2 points. Okay, so let's draw a little sketch here of a line. All right, let's suppose there's a point right here and there's a point right here. Okay, if I know those points, all right, let's say that this is x sub 1, y sub 1, all right, because that would be my first point on the line that I know what it is. So those little subscripts are just indicating that's the x coordinate for the first point and that's the y coordinate for the first point. Okay, and then the coordinates of this one would be, say, x sub 2, y sub 2. All right, that's a second point on the line, and if I know the coordinates of that, I'm denoting it with the x sub 2 and the y sub 2. Okay, that 2 is telling me, hey, this is the second point on the line. So this formula is designed to be used when you know 2 points on the line. Okay, so the given formula is m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So I'll give you a minute to write that down. The letter M should be pretty familiar with you because I know you know slope-intercept form. I know you were introduced to that into middle school. All right, and that M was the slope in our slope-intercept form. That M is also going to represent our slope in this formula. Okay, now a lot of people don't write the M equals. They just write the y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. All right, and that's fine, and that's the part you need. But there are some questions. All right, they could give you 1 point, both numbers. They could give you one of the numbers for the second point, and they could give you the slope. All right, in which case you're going to have to write an equation to be able to answer that type of question. All right, so because you would know 3 of these numbers, you might know these 2 numbers and this one and this, and you were trying to find this one. All right, so unless you write this as an equation and you understand that this formula has an equals m on it, all right, then you wouldn't, if you didn't realize that, you wouldn't be able to answer that type of question. All right, so how many people will remember this from middle school? Did we do this in middle school? I'm getting head nods from some of you, and some of you are no, so that just means you've slept since then. We're good. Okay, all right. Now, before I do examples on that, let's talk a little bit about what our slope looks like in a pictorial sense. Okay, So let's call this 4 general slopes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 4 little coordinate planes here. I'm going to try to draw them all the same size, the best I can here. You can actually draw them on this. You don't need the little sticky graph papers for this because it's, like I said, it's going to be general slopes. So we're not going to precisely put any lines on them. All right, there are 4 cases. In general, when you look at a line that's been graphed, you can determine what the slope is in terms of, is it a positive number, is it a negative number, is it 0, or is it undefined. All right, you don't always have to use the formula to get the specific slope of a line. You can just look and see what direction it is going. Okay, so we've got 4 different scenarios. These are the only 4 ways that a line can be drawn. Okay, if I start somewhere down here in the bottom left hand corner and I go upward to the top right hand corner, it doesn't matter where on the graph that I go. Okay, let's say I do that. All right, it's starting in the bottom left and it's going up to the top right. All right, this type of slope is going to be a positive slope. And right now, on that picture right there, that's the only thing I can say. I can't tell you it's a positive 5 or it's a positive 2/3 or it's a positive 1/3. I just know in general, because it rises to the right, it has a positive slope. All right, so that's one possible way to draw it. Okay, if I start in the top left and then come down to the bottom right, again, it doesn't matter where I put it. All right, but if I go with that general angle, starting top left and coming down to the bottom right, okay, that will be a negative slope. Again, just looking at this type of generic little picture where I've not graphed it very precisely and there's no hash marks or anything on that, the only thing I can say is it's got a negative slope. All right, I don't know whether it's a negative 1/3 or a negative 2 or a negative 4, but I know it's negative. All lines that look like this are negative, all lines that look like this are positive. Okay, and then the 2 examples. All right, I like to think of Indiana roads, okay, because we're flat, right? We got cornfields, we're flat, and there's no hills around here. So anytime I have a horizontal line, all right, that has a 0 slope. The road exists, it's just not going up at an angle or going down. We have no mountains, we have no hills. All right, you could think of this as, oh, you're going up the hill, you're coming down the hill. Okay, this is flat land here in Indiana. Okay, now from that formula that we saw just a little bit ago, like y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, all right, when you put those numbers in there, you're going to get a number on the top, you're going to get a number on the bottom. All right, your 0 slope is going to get a 0 on the top, some number on the bottom, and I don't know what that number is going to be. It really doesn't matter what that number is going to be for an overall slope of 0, because why? 0 divided by any number is 0. Okay, so when you do the formula and you get a 0 on the top and some random number on the bottom, that's equal to 0, and the picture is going to look like this. Okay, it's going to be a horizontal line. All right, now, the only other possible way to draw a line would be straight up and down. All right, think of this. Can a car drive up the side of a building? No, it can't. All right, so then if we're referring to these as roads, this is going up a hill, this is going down a hill, this is your Indiana roads, this road doesn't exist. All right, so this slope is, the math word would be undefined. All right, that's the fancy math word. All right, we can also say no slope. There is no slope because it can't exist. All right, we cannot drive up the side of a building. Okay, so it's an easy way to remember it. Now, again, let's talk about that formula. If I plug numbers into that formula with y2 and y1, x2, x1, I'm going to get a number on the top and a number on the bottom, right? On this one, I will get some random number on top, and I don't know what that number is going to be, okay? But if you get a 0 on the bottom, that's this one. That is the up and down line. That's the undefined slope. This will be called, you'll write down undefined. All right, on your calculator, if you tried to take some number and divide by 0, it gives you an error, right? We can't divide by 0, so that's why. Okay, so these two things are important when you do that formula. When you get a 0 on the top, the answer is 0. The picture would look like this. When you do that formula and you get a 0 on the bottom, it's undefined. That's what you write, and then the picture would look like this, an up and down line. Okay, so far so good. Questions? Okay. All right. So hopefully from middle school you at least understood that this had a positive slope and negative slope. Maybe not those two. All right. Now let's take a look at those formulas that we just did. That formula of y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So your directions are going to ask you to find the slope. And that's probably all they're going to tell you. And then they're going to give you 2 points. They're going to give you maybe, say, a -2 and a 5. And maybe the second point that they give you is a 8, -6. All right, now just for reference, let's go ahead and write that formula down. M equals x sub 2, nope, not x sub 2, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Okay, so just as a little review, because that was on the other page. I want to make that look a little bit more like a y. There we go. All right, now you don't have to label things. All right, however, initially to start with, this is our first point, this is our second point. All right, because the number one mistake to this formula, the math's not hard, you're just going to be subtracting numbers. All right, what's hard is people plug in the numbers in the wrong spot. If this is my first point, then this is x sub 1 and this is y sub 1. Those subscripts tell you which point it is. The first number is the x coordinate, second number is the y coordinate. All right, this one over here is my second point, so this is x sub 2, this is y sub 2. All right, initially it may help you to label them, because then when you go to pull the numbers into this formula, you're less likely to make a mistake. Okay, all right, so let's do the math then. All right, here's my formula, y2 minus y1. So y2 is a -6, and then minus a 5. All right, so literally I'm just following this, y sub 2, which is a -6, minus whatever y sub 1 is, which is a 5. Okay, on the bottom, x sub 2, which is an 8. All right, and then minus whatever x sub 1 is. X sub 1 is a -2. And I literally write it out like that. I am subtracting because it's in the formula. It's 8 minus a -2. The number is -2. All right, so this is where it's going to be crucial that you know how to work with your integers. Okay, so here across the top, all right, I do this with plus negative there, so -11. Okay. And then down here on this one, whenever I subtract a negative, I think of it as adding. So I do the little plus plus right there. 8 and 2 is 10. Okay. And then literally, that's all there is to it. All right. You stop right there. It's already in lowest terms. You do not turn it into a mixed number. All right. It can't be a mixed number based on our definition, because our definition said we need a change in the y's and a change in the x's. So I literally need a number on top and a number on the bottom, and I don't care if the number on top is bigger. Okay, so we're going to say reduce to lowest terms. Do not turn into a mixed number. A little bit later I'll give you another definition for slope. All right, and so we'll definitely not want to turn it into a mixed number for that. Okay, so are we good there? Did we do this in middle school? Yes? Okay. All right, then I want you to try one on your own. All right, same set of directions, really simple here. Find slope. And let's say I give you a -4 and a -5 as the first point. And the second point then is a 6, -2. All right, so I will stop for a minute and you try it. Okay, Landon, what did you get? 3 over 10. Okay, very good. He got 3 over 10. 3 over 10 is the right answer. Okay, so following that formula, my y sub 2 value is a negative 2. I'm going to subtract my y sub 1, which is a negative 5. I'm going to put that all over the x sub 2, which is a 6, minus the x sub 1, which is a negative 4. Okay, both of those are ones where we would change it to plus plus, or I choose to change it to plus plus. All right, integer y's there then gives us a 3 over a 10. Okay, now again on this, I didn't label. All right, but if you labeled, that's probably a good idea initially to begin with. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. All right, that way you're not accidentally pulling the wrong numbers in. How many people got that? How many people got 3/5? Okay, pretty good number. Okay, all right. So that formula you're going to have to do. I don't know that, oh well, yeah, let's see if I can just randomly make up one where I talked about where you have to use the whole thing with the m equals and find a missing number. All right, let's go ahead and throw one of those in. Okay, so let's say the directions say find the missing variable. Okay, find the missing variable. And then let's say they give you a negative 2 and an 8 as one ordered pair that's on this line. Let's say that they give you x sub 1 and then they give you a 9. And then let's say they tell you that the slope is 2/3. Okay, now, since I just randomly made up all these numbers, I don't know that this is going to turn out nice, all right, as far as a nice answer, okay? But this is a possibility. This would be my first point. This would be my second point, which they didn't give you the whole point. They give you one of the two coordinates. They don't give you this one. And then they give you the slope. All right, so this is why you need that entire formula. The entire formula is m equals x sub 2. Why do I keep saying x? Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. All right, I'm going to write that whole thing out. All right, now let's go up and label things, all right, just so that we are staying on top of things. All right, I did label this x sub 1, all right, which technically I probably, let's make this a little bit better for you. Let's make this x sub 2 since this is technically the second point. Let's call that x sub 2. All right, so this is my first point. This is my second point. So this is x sub 1, this is y sub 1. This is x sub 2, which is what we're trying to find, and then this is y sub 2. All right, I don't have to label the m because it's already labeled right there. All right, so it's a matter of let's literally plug in the numbers where we see them. All right, this says m. M is 2/3. Okay, so let's put in 2/3 for that m. Put the equal sign down. All right, y sub 2 is 9 minus y sub 1 is 8. X sub 2, I don't know what it is. So I'm going to literally put x sub 2 because I don't know what it is. All right, but I know my formula says minus whatever x sub 1 is. X sub 1 is a negative 2. So I've plugged in numbers, all of them that I know. This is the one I don't know, and this is the one I'm trying to find. Okay, now we are going to do a little bit of math and simplify. All right, because on top, can't I do 9 minus 8? That's going to be a 1, right? So I'm going to keep my 2/3 over here. I'm going to put a 1 right here. All right, can I make this plus plus? Right, because it's minus a negative. So I could, on the bottom, I could put x sub 2 plus 2 so that I don't have to mess with that minus minus. All right, now what is this? What, I get two fractions set equal to each other. We did this before Christmas. This was two fractions set equal to each other is called a, starts with a p. It is a proportion. This is a proportion. We solved proportions. This was on your semester exam. All right, it's been on lots of tests. All right, this right here now, all this is a proportion. All right, we did similar proportions like 7 over 8 equals, let's make that another 8 over an x minus 2, and I asked you to find x. We did this before Christmas. All right, this is the exact same thing, except now it just has a little subscript on there. It's not a plain variable. All right, what did we do to solve these? We cross-multiplied down. Okay, do you remember us cross-multiplying down? So we multiplied this way, and then we multiplied this way. All right, you don't always, when you do your homework, you don't have to put those arrows in. I did it in the notes just so that you can see what we're doing here. All right, 3 times 1 is 3, so you can do that math in your head. The equal sign comes straight down, but this time I'm taking 2 times a binomial, so don't try to multiply it in your head. Put the 2, parentheses, x sub 2 plus 2. All right, write it like we know how to show distributive property. Okay, now you have an equation that you know how to solve. Distribute the 2 on that side. So I have a 3 here. 2 times x sub 2 plus 2 times 2 is 4. I've got a one-step equation. All right, even though it's got that subscript in there, that equation right there is no different than us doing an equation that says 3 equals 2x plus 4. It's the exact same thing because I don't care what that variable is. I can change it to any letter. I can have subscripts on it. It doesn't matter. All right, so at this point, what would I do with this? I would do what to both sides? Someone said subtract 4. Okay, so I would subtract 4 from both sides. It's a two-step equation. So those would cross out. What's 3 minus 4? Negative 1 equals 2x sub 2. How do you get rid of the coefficient in front of a variable? Divide both sides by 2. Which means I'm just going to leave that. Negative 1/2 is equal to x sub 2. That's my missing number that goes right there, is negative 1/2. All right, so that's why this type of question is why it's really important that you memorize the entire formula as not just y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. You need to remember that it has m equals in the formula so that you can plug things in. Okay, now notice